to the Tide Pod.
Well, hi, everybody. It's another episode of the Tide Pod, and today I'm joined by Hannah from Heartcharged, and we're going to give a little bit of information about their initiative and what work that they're doing there, and share some stories, I think, on commonalities we have with experiences from, chronic illness and disability space, and go from there. So it's great to have you, Hannah.
No, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Definitely. But starting out, I kind of like to go for something a little bit more fun or entertaining, but I'm curious if you or if Heartcharged has like a theme song or a song you feel like kind of, symbolizes maybe the efforts or just a song that you're liking right now.
Just right off the bat, all the hard questions.
Yeah, let's just get the hard ones started. Yeah.
No, that's a great question. I definitely think it's a song that has, like the beat that you need to do CPR with, since that's something big that we do CPR trainings and AEDs. Anything really that has to do with like, heart stuff. There's like Kickstart My Heart from Motley Crue.
Okay, that's a good one.
Staying Alive, something that's kind of like, hey, especially for me as somebody who's survived death, something, that gives you kind of a shock, but kind of gets your heart pumping back. I think that would kind of be like a comeback song.
Yeah, I like that.
To kind of encompass, what we do at Heartcharged and like even my own mission in life. So yeah, one of those,
Yep.
songs.
There's
like
definitely a whole, I think, playlist probably of that kind of song that would be appropriate. So yeah, I like that. But great. Well, that's good. We got the hardest question out of the way for the day. So, but as far as Heartcharged and everything, can you just give like a brief intro, like how maybe you and Bethany decided to start it, or kind of what your background was leading up to it?
Yeah. So me and my sister Bethany, we both have the same genetic heart condition, and we were diagnosed in our teens. And so that really changed our life, and we were so grateful that we had each other going through it. Even though statistically we knew like other people would have this heart condition, we have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or HCM. But we were really grateful to have each other. And it was Bethany's idea, especially after she got an implanted defibrillator. She was like, hey, we should really use the power of social media, make an account that's specifically for raising awareness, for building a community, especially for young people with heart conditions, with heart disease. Because you think a lot when you hear heart disease, you think old people,
True,
or you just
right.
think heart attacks. And so there's a lot of, misinformation, or people look at us and think like, oh, you don't have a deadly heart condition. No, you must be, making stuff up.
Right.
Yeah, so it was her idea. So then we kind of just made an Instagram account at Heartcharged. And then within a year, because we wanted to do more stuff about really supporting patients, especially those who had like had a surgery or had gotten diagnosed. And so to kind of, make us seem more legit, we became a nonprofit with the same name,
Right.
Heartcharged. And really our mission at Heartcharged is to end preventable deaths from undiagnosed heart conditions and sudden cardiac arrest and patient-to-patient support. So we have a big mission, and we realize like really the foundation of that really starts with just raising awareness and making more people aware of heart disease and who it, affects, and what they can do, if someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. And was it something that you started initially on social media, and then do you do in-person things now, or is it still kind of contained within social media?
We do in-person stuff. We do like in our own community, which we've always been advocates and would always do stuff in our community and talk to people, whatever would listen, to raise awareness and, share our story. And then that's where we realized the power of social media, because then we were getting people that maybe didn't have a support system in their own backyard, and reaching people and offering that online support of like, hey, you're not alone, even if you live in Scotland or Italy or India, like, or hey, how can I garner you towards resources that you may not have heard of in your own community? So it's kind of like a hybrid in a way.
Yeah.
Because we then sometimes we'll go travel to an area and then we'll have people meet up with us in person, but we still do like Zoom calls of like kind of like patients coming to talk together. We still message online or get on video calls or phone calls. And then we'll do like in-person stuff of like CPR trainings and AED trainings. So it's, a bit of a hybrid, but we definitely have seen the positive of being online and how that reach expands, of doing it that way. But also it's always nice to do stuff in person and hug somebody in real life.
True.
And,
sometimes
do
the physical
those kind
hug
of
is kind of hard to replicate online, but but
Yeah.
you really hit on something though, I think with disability and chronic illness, that it really doesn't matter like which sector we're in or what the disability is. I think that kind of community and connection through social media is really good for like overcoming like isolation and loneliness, and like letting people know that there's somebody out there that knows what they're going through and can help. That's something that really, I think, drew me in especially to it, and it sounds like it's been that way for you too.
Yeah, I don't think people realize like how life-saving, like, like it's not good like there's like, oh, man shouldn't be alone, even though sometimes I like to be alone, you know.
Well, I mean, a little
But you're
balance
like,
is good.
yeah, but like, you know, we all crave connection and we all crave to know that we actually have, you know, like community is so powerful. And even if
Mhm.
that is online, like how can we use that positive side of social media to garner, you know, and like go over that barrier of isolation of how we could reach people who aren't being otherwise reached because they feel limited by their disability, or people aren't, you know, as
Yeah.
nice or welcoming or supporting them. And it goes a long way, I think, for like the mental health aspect of having people like that you could kind of always like, hey, I just need a quick phone call, it's been a hard day or a week or something like that. It goes
Hmm.
a lot farther than people realize.
I agree. Yeah, that definitely, kind of a small thing makes a big difference when you're going through something like that. Just knowing that there's someone you can reach out to, I think that knows right away what it's like. So that's really a good thing, I think. What made you decide to go to nonprofit? I know you said like notoriety and to get, kind of involved in a little bit more. I don't know if that like enhanced like networking or specifically what, maybe you felt like you would get from that.
No, it immensely, you know,
Yeah.
because we're like 20 something girls. They're like, oh, we run an
Yeah.
Instagram account. We want to, you know, come see your patients in the hospital. And they're like, what? You know, like,
So it
so it
adds
helps
like
us kind
a,
of, yeah,
yeah,
you know, that notary, or like now with like we have a legit blue check mark. It kind of gives you something of, oh,
right.
this isn't just some, you know, crazy two girls trying to do something, even though we still are
True.
that, but it does
Add
help
that
to have the
credibility
nonprofit.
factor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it opened us to do more partnerships, to
Okay.
apply for grants, like to do that, to kind of network, to get like
Right. Okay.
funding and things that, okay, you're a little bit more legitimate so people can trust you. You kind of get, it's easier to get your foot in the door going
Yeah.
through that avenue in this space than just being solely, oh, I'm, you know, an online community. But it
Right.
does, I will say it has been interesting because we started like that. So then when we work with other organizations who like, oh, well, we do all of our own social media and all this stuff, and then here they are hiring like a person to do it. So it, the
Exactly.
way we connected with our community is very interesting and different than others, because we started originally just as like, hey, we're here to support people, how can we
Yeah.
help you? And then now having like the nonprofit, it is a, yeah, it's been interesting talking to other heart, you know, focused organizations, because it's like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
we're a little bit different. I mean, not only because we're younger or have that more approach, but because we've seen the power of social media and the online community. It differs us from the others.
Yeah. And how was that process like converting to nonprofit? I know just a little bit about the, series of steps that you have to go through to get it, but what was that experience like?
Oh yeah, I mean, my sister got her degree in dance. I got my degree in film. So, you know, we
Yeah.
didn't really have the background of like, here's how to start a
Like Shark Tank,
non-profit.
entrepreneurial. Yeah.
Yeah, luckily we have a really great family accountant who kind of was like really made it super easy, but
Okay.
doesn't mean we still
Nice.
have to look stuff up of when we're filing taxes or looking things and like, okay, hey, here, you know, like, because we don't have a lot of money. So it was like we kind of just started this as a passion project. And then so we kind of were like, oh, what can we do? So we're learning new skills to kind of be like, oh,
Hmm.
well, we can cut that, paying somebody for that, because let me just learn how to do it. But we had very nice brothers who gave us kind of like the down payment or the, you know,
Yeah.
registration fee to start it. So that was a nice thing of like, hey, we support you, we see what you're trying to do, so here's that little boost to get it started.
Yeah. Yeah. And was it financially kind of expensive to have to start that up, or was it like it seems like it would be a barrier potentially for, for nonprofits to get started.
No, there is that barrier of finance of like, that's why like we couldn't fund it. So it was nice of like them
Yeah.
pitching and being like, hey, I got you covered. And then it's almost like, okay, we're gonna, you know, hopefully pay you back. But that's
True.
the funny
Yeah.
thing is I'm making a non-profit, you know, not for
But there's
profit.
still, you have to bring in
Yeah,
funding.
but there's
Yeah.
still, you know, you need to be making profit in order for it to be
It's funny how
substantial.
that
We
works, right?
definitely, yeah. Or you
Yeah.
definitely see the people in the space who are definitely here more profit focused, and people are
Yeah.
like, hey, I just want to do this, like, you know, this is a charity, I just want to give back and help people. But you realize like, oh my gosh, it's taking so much of our time, you know,
Mhm.
what is my worth? I am worth some money, you know. So like fundraising, because we're not that great at it, has been hard. But then it's been like, okay, like how can we find funding of people who, you know, want to support our projects? And like for us, if someone gives us like 25 or $50, we're like, oh my
Right.
gosh, thank you so much. You know, like we're like, what can we use that with and
Yeah,
do it?
every little
Yeah.
bit
But
helps. Yeah.
and I think also even like when we do our annual thing of like, oh, what cost of even like, hey, we pay for like a longer Zoom thing because we do meetups, and oh, to do our website, and like the little keep ups, it does add up when you're like not bringing in a lot of money, where you're like,
Well, especially
what's
those
important, what's not.
subscriptions. Yeah. I mean, the blue check
Oh
mark, like
yeah.
all of that, is, yeah, I definitely relate to you on that. I'm constantly trying to, see if there's a way to streamline it or cut it down a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah, and then you're like, you kind of putting in your own money and time first, and then, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, this is my thing, I'm investing
well,
probably the
yeah,
most in it to
but
make it
that
start
kind
running
of,
and going.
to me, it makes it a stronger connection too, though. Like when people that actually know, firsthand experience with that, and they start a nonprofit kind of geared towards that mission, it seems like I don't know, just it's a more synchronous type of match or something, if that makes sense.
No, I definitely feel, and I think you can feel because this isn't like a, oh, this is an easy thing what we're trying to combat and do. But I think when you have that passion, and I think when it is personal,
Mhm.
that's what helps you get through the hard days or the tough, times where it's like, oh, I know how much this is important to me and I got to keep going.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's hard to then be like, no, look, I'm really, I'm saving lives and what I'm doing, I do need the funding. But like, then you kind of realize like, oh, I never got into this for making money. I got into this to help people. And when that
right.
you're able to do that, that's what keeps you going, you
Right,
know?
exactly, exactly. And I noticed on your Instagram that you were featuring, several different people that maybe were patients or people that reached out to you. So is that like an effort to kind of just tell stories of more people that are living with that, or like how did that get started?
Oh, absolutely. I think because like when you think of Heartcharged, like me and my sister, like, oh, the Heartcharged girls, like, because we
Yeah.
became the face of it because it just started of us sharing our story. And then it's like, we have this condition, but we have many of our followers have variety of heart conditions.
Mhm.
So it's like, how can I find you like I don't want to say like a matchmaker service because not really that,
True.
but in a sense,
Right.
it's like, hey, like I can answer maybe on this specific thing, or we've had the same surgery, but hey, now I have thousands of people here who
And
want
they
to
can
help other
see your
people.
information, right?
Right. And so then I can say, hey, oh, like we'll post something on the story. Hey, somebody's looking for somebody who has had this surgery, this thing. And then we'll have like 15 responses within minutes. And it's like, hey, now you have more people to talk and learn about. So we never wanted to be like, oh, we're the faces of this. Is like, oh, Heartcharged is bigger than us. And we want this to feel like a community, like a family. Like we want you to know, like, we're the friends that you have if you want a message. And so that's why we really wanted to then highlight people. And we've been doing it since the beginning really. And then we've
Okay.
gotten some cool, like recently we got some funding for a project where we wanted to do kind of like it was virtual because the funds couldn't really cover like having everybody fly into a location that we did like a roundtable and we had patients who all had a cardiomyopathy or a heart condition and it was nice to talk to them and highlight their stories and be able to give them a platform because I feel like in this space in the patient space, I feel like we are the most taken advantage of because it's like, oh,
Mhm.
your story. Let me just use it to tell my story to help it. And it's
Right.
really like, hey, like we're gonna pay you guys to be a part of this. We want to make it feel like, are you comfortable with it? Like you're sharing it, you get to be highlighted. Because I feel like sometimes we're patients, we just take a lot of like, oh, you guys should just be grateful. You got to be invited here. And it's like, no,
Right.
no, no. How
Yeah.
can we make you feel empowered and like be a part of it? And we even have people a lot of people message us like, hey, I would love to share my story on your platform or like to be able to share more about this. And so like, who am I to be like, no,
Right. Right.
like, yeah, if I can do to help and share, and I hope then you can connect with somebody or just be able to have that outlet and share it. It's like, hey, I would have loved, and I remember the people who did that when we were starting out,
Mhm.
So it's like, how can I then pay it forward and let this be a space that's, just more than me and my sister, that people can see
Yeah.
there's a lot more people behind this.
Well, I think that's such a good thing because I know there's organizations out there that probably use, patients as a way to promote, the company or the team or whatever, and then they don't necessarily make them part of the organization even. So I think that's a really good way to network and reach out, and then people can see like, oh well, here's all these other individuals that need help or something, and they have experience. So I think it's a really good way to build, kind of from inside out, so to speak. Um, that's really cool. So you were talking about the age thing. I wanted to get back to that. Kind of that invisible disability, like people assuming, what's going on, and what has that been like for you? And like, have you, with your followers and your organization, has that been something that has persisted, like that, kind of adult range that's not elderly yet, but it's just assumed that you can't possibly have something wrong?
Oh, I mean, it's a consistent battle because there's almost like a monopoly on
Mhm.
like, and also I think it's hard like the myth of people thinking, oh, heart, like I don't have to worry about heart disease till I'm in my 40s, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I like a heart attack, that's the one, like, oh, my arm is feeling like, and because we've been fed so much through media of, oh, that's what heart disease is, oh, that's what a heart disease patient is, oh, that's what it's where even in the healthcare system, oh, why would I check my cholesterol at this age? Or little things like that has been built for, oh, it's just an older people's
Mhm.
thing. And then you start seeing, and like the reason I started advocating is when I looked up online my condition and I just found headlines of a bunch of kids who died playing sports I played. And that
Right.
really hit me because then I felt overwhelmed. Like, wow, I don't know why I'm still here, but I feel immense gratitude and I don't want to take that for granted. So, how do I raise awareness that actually, like, for instance, the cardiomyopathy we have is genetic?
Mhm.
We were born with it. There's a lot of people who are born with congenital heart disease. So, it's like, wait, like, you could think maybe a baby, but somehow from a baby to 40, but no one in between
Right.
can
Like they
have a
somehow
heart
magically
problem.
jump from, yeah, from baby to yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, maybe this baby was born with a hole in its heart. So it was like, oh, the stories aren't out there, or they're also not getting the press they deserve,
Right.
And so that's been like, you know, we started realizing, oh, there's so much just with the awareness part of like, hey, or like, what are the warning signs of a heart condition? Oh, fainting is not normal for, you know, young girls. So like things like that and combating a lot of the different things, we're like, okay, that's why. And we also realized like, where do young people go to find information? They
Right.
go to social media, they go online. And now I think people, because we'll have organizations be like, oh, we got to, you know, you get the young people. I'm like, yeah, because we were young. We've like a lot of people even found us through simple hashtags or when they were in the hospital getting something they wanted to see, right? Like, what does my future look like? And they're like, wow, thank you so much for bearing, you know, your scars out and making me feel empowered. And it's like, oh, see, like that is the beauty of it. But because there was no representation, like we kind of had to start making our own, right? Instead of
Yeah.
waiting for news or film and television to catch up, it was like, no, 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 too many people. And what's scary in the heart world is like it's life or death, you know, because
Right.
that's how quickly something with your heart can go. And when usually there's a heart problem, you know, if your heart's not working, yeah, that's not the best.
Right.
So we really had to kind of like combat it. And then even then finding statistics like, oh, wait, like this is the number one killer of like young adults, like
Mhm.
number one killer in school campus, like actually it kills more than all cancers combined. It's like, oh my goodness, wow, like heart disease is the number one killer of men and women. Like, so
Mhm.
it was like, but when you think of a women's issue, you think of breast cancer because they have better PR. They
Mhm.
got us and they got us word. They got us, wow, I should be checking my breast. Is there any lumps? So it just feels like there's not enough for heart disease, or there's a monopoly on what they want you to think of, like, oh,
Right.
if you don't eat your broccoli,
Mhm.
that's why you're gonna get heart disease. So there's almost more like the preventative, but it's like, hi, there's a group of us here that doesn't matter if I eat my broccoli, it's not going to rewrite my genetic
Exactly.
code.
Right.
And I'm
And
going to
again,
still
that's
have.
like this assumption, right? That like everyone with a heart condition or heart issue, it's all the same thing. But it's I mean, it's not necessarily that. And you can't, it reminds me of cancer in a way, right? There's so many different kinds and like severity levels and everything. It's like, well, it's not really a one cure, you know, for the entire thing. It's, you know, it's much more nuanced, so much more of a spectrum, I think, than that. So that's a good point that, you know, you're bringing up there to try to spread that awareness that it's not always diet, you know, and it's not just this standard treatment procedure necessarily.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's also not like race or gender, ethnicity. Like there is some differences in the sense of like getting
Mm.
diagnosed and like, hey, why are, you know, Black women less diagnosed? Like why they're being misdiagnosed and like all those different factors in
Mhm.
like, you know, the healthcare system. But then you look at it when people ask like, oh, for instance, your condition, does it affect more men or women? It's like, no, it's equal. So you
Yeah.
think that would be something we could all come like,
You
hey,
would
this is
think, yeah.
affecting all of us. Hey, what can we do about it? And then the hard part is being a young person, not seeing that, but because I don't look sick unless I'm having a really bad day where, you
Mm.
know, I might need to use some mobility aids and you're kind of like, oh, what's going on? Or why do you not have color in your face? Oh, I'm about to faint, you know,
Yeah.
or something like that. That's where it was hard too, of like the social aspect of, oh my goodness, I might have scars, but nobody thinks, oh, you have a, you know, a device that's keeping you alive underneath that.
Yeah.
Or, oh, like I had to wear a sling after I had my surgery and people thought like, oh, did you break your arm? You're like, no, I had heart surgery. And then they look at you like, but
Like,
why?
well,
I
what's
don't
wrong
get
with,
that.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't get that. So it's been interesting, like when we like obviously like anything you start learning more about your condition, and then obviously there's a lot of like there's no cure for our condition, so it is a
Mhm.
lot of lifestyle changes. It's learning your limitations, it's understanding it. And then when we found out like, oh wow, like not only we're part of the heart community, we're part of the disability community, we're part of the chronic illness community, and how much there is all these overlaps of
Yeah.
having it and finding our space within it of like, oh, this, you know, we have a disability but it's non-visible. And that's
Right.
where things get a little bit tricky, not only in your everyday life, but then it's like, oh wow, like we have to kind of stop making, you know, heart, you know, stuff in the disability being non-visible. Like we have to
Right.
give
Right.
visibility to it
Do
because
you feel
people
like,
really don't think. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
no, that's fine. But do you think that the awareness and understanding has improved, or do you still think that there's, I mean, I know there's pockets of, you know, people that don't understand or don't really know kind of that there are invisible disabilities, and it's kind of that don't judge a book by its cover type of thing. But like, since you started it, has there been more awareness that you've noticed, or is it,
Oh, I definitely feel like there's been a lot of improvements.
yeah,
I do look towards like the UK has done a lot of things that we've like slowly like with like the sunflower lanyard with the hidden disabilities and training things like at the airports or big things like that. And that's like a nice weight off your kind of shoulders, especially if people
yeah,
are properly trained to not have to explain yourself, but seeing something visible that lets me know, hey, I might see you and you look fine, but actually you need, you know,
yeah,
accommodations. And then like I remember I shared with you before, like I remember going to like the UK in like 2018 and seeing a restroom, a handicap restroom, and it had a sign with somebody with a heart thing and being like, "Oh, you
yeah,
could use this." And I felt seen by a toilet or a loo in the UK because it was
yep.
like, "Oh my gosh, you understand that not all
The
disabilities are
UK has, they
visible."
have a lot of things going, as far as like advancing disability access and everything. I've talked to, I think probably half of my guests on the podcast now have been from over there. And it's just like, oh, that's kind of nice to have an organization that actually looks for accessibility and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
that's,
they're
yeah,
doing something right, so it's like that's where you're like, hey, like, what can we learn from them and even make it even hopefully better here too, of like, hey, how can we, and I think that's where social media helps, of people telling you about resources that you may not be able to hear about, or like, oh my gosh, wow, what is that? Or then also learning from each other's disability, because I don't know every disability, even though I'm a part of this community. We're all still
right.
learning of like, oh wow, I need this accommodation. Like for me, like it's really a lot to like go up the stairs, but I look like somewhat, I'm not that fit because I'm
Yeah.
just slim, so they're like, oh wow, like why are you in the elevator,
Oh yeah.
when I'm
Like,
with
look at you,
my
like, why are you taking up space here? Like, yeah,
yeah, you're
yeah,
like, I don't see you in something, you don't look old, or like, right, like if you're like on the bus or whatever, it's like, oh, give up this seat, right, for like
yeah,
elderly people. Like it's easier for my mom who's embraced her gray hair and is 60, even though we have the same condition. Nobody's gonna look at her and be like, what are you doing in the elevator? And
right.
that's where it's gotten like, socially, I think it's still going there. And I also feel like we don't have enough representation of heart
Yeah,
in like media and stuff. So I feel like it's slowly getting there, because I think through like the awareness on social media and people understanding more. But I wish we could get to that mainstream level where people are a little bit more understanding, and it's not
yeah,
just the consistent of me just keep, whether not like complaining, but like me going on social media and telling you, hey, or I just had this horrible interaction with somebody,
yeah, yeah,
and I had to kind of advocate for myself, but I think like the groundwork of people doing that and continue doing that, and we hope that we've added to that, is definitely changing the way people look at disability.
yeah, yeah. And in some sense, it's a never ending battle, I know, to constantly advocate and fight for, understanding and awareness. But at the same time, I think we're always looking for little small gains in society to, give them an idea of what we're dealing with on, the disability front. So I don't know, it's a tricky pathway, I think.
Yeah.
How about like in the medical field or with doctors or anything with your condition, with you and your sister growing up? Was there any time where maybe you weren't taken seriously by the doctors, or maybe they, prescribed something that didn't really help? But what was your experience like there?
Oh, no, that's right. Because then you think, if this is society, from society, these people are becoming doctors, like, in that sense. But no, we've had, so like my pediatrician, my family doctor, I came, told him I was having, almost all of, when I looked back at finding out what the warning signs of a heart condition
Mm,
was, I was like, oh, I had like all of them. And I did tell my doctor, hey, I'm fainting, I'm doing this. And they were just blew me off. So
mm.
unfortunately, yes, there is still bias, whether you
Why do
like
you think
it's,
that is?
conscious or not. I think it's because you have to look back at what's the source material, right? Like
Yeah.
what they're learning from, wow, people who've really only studied like men, like for instance, in the heart disease world, we found a lot of research wasn't including women. So a lot of the times that's why, like when you like they had to start advertising different heart attack like symptoms, because it's not the same for men and women. In my condition, it doesn't really vary that much, but also we don't have that much research. There's always
Mm,
more room for research and understanding. So and I think it's because, and sometimes you do see it's a little bit more of like the older doctors, and not to be biased, but from my own experience of like a lot of like the older people of like, oh, the books that I studied, or maybe I'm not also continually like looking up this
updating and
stuff. And
looking at new. Yeah.
also you like in some sense, like you are a family doc, right? You're kind of used to, oh, you've been throwing up. You're kind of used to this simple stuff. You're not a specialist on my heart. So actually, when you listen with a stethoscope, unless you're super skilled, you couldn't really tell I have this condition by
Mm,
just listening to it. You would actually need to run a few tests, but you don't have those tests. So it's like, oh, okay, of course I know your knowledge is limited. And that's where you would hope your ego gets out of the room, or you have at least like a simple EKG or electrocardiogram,
yeah.
which would collect your heartbeat in there. And that they could then be like, hey, let me refer you. But that was the problem, is like, then they don't even refer you. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep probably complaining, or sadly, I could pass away because you decided to tell me, like, if I listened to my doctor, I'd be dead. Like,
Yeah.
simple put, because he just like, oh no, that's normal. And you're just like, yeah, that's normal. So then I'm gaslighting myself to think,
There's so
yeah,
much of
I
that
just
too, and it's
faint.
almost like a psychological thing too. I think at that point that you start wondering, well, am I like what's really causing this? And then if they treat it like, well, it's all in your mind or something like that, and when they could have referred you to a specialist just to make sure with something. I mean, with the heart, like that's one of the most serious things. You would think you would get to a specialist quickly to double check, but it sounds like it's not that way.
Yeah, the referral is just so interesting. Or like, oh, that's not something that's needed for kids. Why would I check? Or unless now it's more like, oh, well, you're playing sports, I need to check it. And it's like, hey, like we got done in our own county free heart screenings for all students from like
Mm,
5 to 18, no matter if you're playing sports, because I had cardiac arrest in my sleep. So that doesn't take an athlete to do. All of us
Absolutely.
sleep, you know? So it's like, how do we push out of like, okay, no, even while we're trying to make gains, let's not just focus on one group of people. Because what are
Mhm.
you telling me? The dancer or the musical theater kid isn't putting as much exertion on, you know, as being an arts person, you're like, hey,
True.
that's kind of biased again, that you only think, oh, let's only help the athletes. But because you hear of the stories again, the press of, oh my gosh, a kid dropped dead on the field, they just think it's an athletic
That
problem
gets
when
all the
actually
attention,
like,
and then there's more
right.
assumptions that come from that. Yeah. As far as like
Yeah.
getting accurate news and things like that, is there, have you found some resources that give like actual, you know, accurate accounting of heart conditions and kind of what's out there versus just the athletic accidents or anything? Or is it kind
I
of
don't have
confusing still?
one. It's
Yeah.
kind of same. I mean, I have Google alerts on like
Yeah.
sudden cardiac, you know, and sometimes depending on the day, I may not be in like, because it is very sad and it makes me very like sad. And I hope, you know, like that's the whole thing of like, how can we prevent, like if this is a preventable thing, right? If we got in there quicker, if somebody actually had an AD or was trained, like
Yeah.
what we could do. And so seeing that, there's a lot of other organizations, heart organizations that really focus on like highlighting the kids who have passed
Yeah.
away and telling you, oh, this year, this is how many people, their age and where they're at. But it is hard because you just kind of get like the local news. So there isn't one, I couldn't tell you, oh, this is the one news outlet I always
Yeah.
turn to, because even they like, depending on, right, like what's the story, is this a good enough story to, you know, be
Isn't
involved,
that,
like to
that's part of the
tell,
issue,
which
right?
is
Like
sad, like is it
it,
clickbaity enough, are you gonna,
exactly.
you know,
Are we going
like
to get
look
attention
at
and
it.
spotlight for this, and not necessarily telling stories that need to be told?
No, and I've even seen, which like only would upset somebody like in the heart thing, because when you start, you know, learning stuff and you're just like, again, of like how you could be like, you're doing something good and then you kind of don't do it perfect enough, because
Mhm.
then that's where people keep getting this misses. It was like Good Morning America or something, like a big, you know, daytime like news thing. And they were saying, oh my gosh, this man was running, I think like the New York Marathon. He collapsed of sudden cardiac arrest. And actually there was a doctor there, helped him, saved him back. So I'm watching it. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, like da 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 da. And then I see them hashtag heart attack. And you're like, but that's not a heart attack. You just told me he had cardiac arrest, and actually there is a difference between the two. So even though you are sharing the story, you're even
Right.
using inappropriate things, and that's why people still get confused of like, oh, like for instance, like you don't really have a lot of signal when you have cardiac arrest. It happens within
Hmm.
seconds. A heart attack, you do have the more of like, oh my
There's
gosh, my
warning
jaw or my
signs. Yeah.
arm. There's it. It's like a heart attack. If you die from a heart attack, it's because it then led into sudden cardiac arrest. But I don't need to have a heart attack to have sudden cardiac arrest can happen. So it is a little bit even of just like that simple thing of, hey, so here's a little bit of the difference. And actually, like, and again, heart attacks do affect like people older, even though I've had people who are in their 20s still have it. But cardiac arrest, I know newborn babies to old people, that one is really what affects all people. So that's where it's like, oh, actually, you using heart attack when it wasn't, then does confuse people. Oh, well, no wonder he was older. I don't have to kind of worry about that. So even that kind of stuff is like, okay, it's still not perfect of sometimes when people are just sharing about it, because again,
Right.
they're also not citing, I think, the stuff or fully understanding when people explain, because it is
It's
sometimes a little
true.
complicated, but if you took the time you could kind of understand. Like I'm not good in science, I don't have a medical degree, and
Mhm.
I can kind of understand it. So it just takes that time to be like, hey, if I'm going to tell this story, let me tell it with like the right, you know,
Right.
information, so people are informed when they read about this.
Well, and something like you're saying, just the difference in terminology between cardiac arrest and heart attack. I mean, that's like that would be difficult to bring into the news report, I wouldn't think, and you know, and share that information. So it's this constant thing. I feel like that there's not necessarily checks or anybody kind of when they write these reports, like where are they getting the facts from, and are they getting like someone to look over it that understands what's going on, you know, and maybe even have somebody, I don't know, on staff or something that can look over these things that are experienced maybe and give more details that
Yeah.
are accurate. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it also then makes me think too, like, or is just heart attack a more hot word, right? Like, oh, does
True.
that have hashtag have more people following it? So instead of being like, oh, we're more focused on the eyes on it, instead of, oh, this is the accurate
True.
thing, it's like, oh, people hear heart attack, oh, they understand it more. Because it's true, when you hear sudden cardiac arrest, when you say hear sudden cardiac death, you're like, oh, well, that must be you died from sudden heart
Yeah.
something, just context clues. But it's true, like sudden cardiac arrest is not something normal that you hear all the time, but heart attack. So then it also goes to that of like, okay, then help us make this the hotter, even though it shouldn't be, but like
A
make
hot
it something,
topic.
wow, right? The bigger
Yeah.
hashtag you're following, because actually it is
Right.
like
Yeah,
killing
like
more
you
people.
attach
But
death, like death, and people automatically sit up and start listening a little bit more closely. So yeah. Yeah.
or
It's
they
just
tune it
strange.
out. It's
Or
a
that.
hard
Yep. Yep.
balance, yeah. Where you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, somebody died, which is true. You like look, especially if it's a news thing, you look. But then sometimes it's like, oh, the balance of like where we try to make our content like, hey, sometimes I have to be honest and I have to hit it this way, but how do I make, I don't want to scare you and not want you to get your heart checked, or that this is scary. So I have to kind of make it entertaining or digestible for you to understand, so I can inform you, but not then make you like
Good
scared with
point.
fear and paralyze you into want to think like, oh, I don't like, okay, that's great for you, but also tell you, hey, this could affect you, but don't be scared if you have it. And that's kind of why we made our like patient to patient support of like, hey, I hope you find out you don't have something, but if you
Mhm.
do, I want you to know you have a community and you're not alone, because then sometimes that will help your fear of thinking like, what if I go? Who's gonna, help me understand, or
Yeah.
what does my future look like? And so it's been grateful. I think we have to like take the time to applaud the people for being vulnerable and sharing their experience on social media, because it has really helped so many people and really helped them feel that support. And like I feel like privileged and honored to be a part of that space. And I know it's not easy. It's sometimes being like, oh, do I really want to be that vulnerable
Right.
today on
Right.
social media? But seeing how it really affects people and seeing the other accounts that like I'm inspired by, like, wow, like we got to keep doing it, because we're like, we can't expect for the media to catch up, but like we can use this tool that we've been given to kind of make the content we want to see and share the stories that need to be heard. It's
Mhm.
just then hoping that they unfortunately go viral so more people see it, or
Right.
are more
Right.
aware about it.
And
Yeah.
that's a trade-off too. I mean, in some sense, you want some of it to go viral to get the information out there, but then what it takes to actually, have people click and look at it's a whole other situation with the algorithms and all of that. So I'm sure it's, easily influenced by all those kinds of weird things. So like I'm curious, like if that is caught early enough, it seems like I think there's this tendency for when someone gets a diagnosis and there is maybe something they could do, they still look at numbers and mortality rates. And, like that stress you mentioned, they start thinking, well, if I find out I have this, like, is there something I could do? Can I still have a fulfilling life and all those kinds of things? Is that something that people have maybe brought up to you or that you've touched on at any point?
No, I've definitely experienced that,
Yeah.
and definitely talked to people about it. And like even on that topic, I have a film that I'm like about to shoot in the next two
Oh, okay.
months because like for me and my sister, like for me it was very sudden. Like I went in, found out I had this condition, and was told immediately, you need to stop any adrenaline based activity.
Mm.
And I was like literally months before playing on two basketball teams. I was
Oh,
dancing
wow. Yeah.
competitively. I was studying it in school. I was a very active person. And I thought my life might revolve around being, as such, maybe pursuing a career in
Mhm.
something like that. And then I'm told, like, you should be so grateful you haven't dropped dead playing any of those things. Your thickness is so severe. We're getting you on medications. We're not even running tests where we have you run on a treadmill because we don't even need to see you
We don't want
to
to,
know like it's
yeah.
bad. So then here I am, just started high school, thinking I have right, like it's what you want young kids to think. I have the whole world. I have
Yeah.
anything I could pick from. I want to be like doing it. And told, girl, you have now all these things you thought, now think in this small box,
Yeah.
like you can't be doing it. And then for my sister, she wasn't as severe, so she was able to still dance, and they saw that that was such a big part of her. But
Mhm.
then, unfortunately, we have a progressive condition. And years later, they're like, hey, even though you just graduated with this degree, your condition has gone to the point that we would advise you to stop dancing. And so
Mhm.
that her whole life, right? Like, this is the one thing I put my time in. And that's what we see, especially with these kids of like, athletes is my life, or this thing that, is a really adrenaline based thing.
Mhm.
Like, I'm trying to go to college, right? I'm trying to get scholarships. I've already invested so much time. I thought this was my life.
Right.
That's a really hard thing to comprehend when you're told, hi, yeah, you can't do that, and that could risk your life. And it's like, oh my gosh, this battle between, well, this is something I love to do, but it's like slowly in a way like killing me and putting me at risk. And so
Yeah.
like talking about that, and I think like the one thing we'd get asked by younger people of like, how did you find like a new life or a new passion? It's like it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I did sulk and I did be like, well, I guess I'll just watch all this TV and film I didn't watch when I was dancing all the time.
Right.
And like that's what got me to film and TV. But it's like, oh yeah, like that is such a big thing that people do. And whether it happens immediately or it happens where you think you could keep doing something or you have to
Right.
stop for this time, like anybody, like, right, like can join this patient community. So how could we share that hope of, hey, we want
My
you to know
life's
that
not
like
over after this diagnosis. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we like to say like your life doesn't end with this diagnosis. Like, like don't let this, of course it's gonna hurt and you're like, wow, I thought this was my life. But it also in a way like matures you and shapes you in a way
I
that a
was
lot
going
of
to
people
say
don't
that
face that,
you do
like,
learn
oh
some
wow,
things. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what are my things?
And
And then you can
it
find out, wait, my talents, I actually enjoy doing this, but it does hurt and
true.
it does take some time and like molding. But like that's why we wanted to offer that support. And I hope to tell in the film of like help people empathize with people of like, hey, when I tell you this, like, hey, don't stop being my friend because I can't dance anymore. And we used that was our thing in common. But
Mhm.
it does hurt because it is like, wow, like I'm a dreamer. And then you almost feel, but there is getting to a point like, okay, it's getting better, like treatments and medications
Mhm.
that I hope like in 20, 30 years, people don't feel like, well, I could maybe still do this. Of course, there's limitations where it's like, maybe not now, but maybe you come back to it. But yeah, there's something powerful with having hope,
Yeah.
especially in this community. And as any ways that we can do that, to be able to show people, no, like, don't think your life is going to end, or that, hey, you will find something new that will bring you happiness and joy. And we're here along the ride for it to help you in any
Mhm.
way, because that, I think, is it's so much when you think of getting a
Oh yeah.
diagnosis, how much it impacts you, not only physically, but like the emotion, the mental, the social, that, like, yeah, the more that we can have that stuff to help people go through it, the
Yeah.
better.
Something I've noticed too quite a bit is when people get diagnoses when they're, the older they are when they get them, the harder it is maybe to process and go through it. So it's, it's one of those things as soon as you learn what it is and you can, like process it and kind of accept that that kind of version of yourself maybe is gone or it's going to have to be changed slightly. It's still, I think that it's a good message to send out that, there are alternatives. You can, pivot and find something that you're still passionate about. And, it's a difficult thing. It's like that age point, I think that you get that news. So yeah, I think that's such a good thing of getting out there, telling your story and sharing, even though it's, not necessarily easy to do for people to share that kind of experience. But I feel like it's going to make a big difference for people, that come later on that have it too. So yeah, it's really, I think, a good effort that you all are doing there for sure. But for people that are maybe want to know a little bit more about Heartcharged and what's going on, like what's the best avenue? Are you primarily on Instagram, or like what's the best way to get information there?
Yeah, we are chronically online on Instagram for sure. I mean, that's our hub. That's where we kind of started, which is like at Heartcharged. And please, like, it's us answering the DM. So please,
Yeah,
message us if you have any questions or, anything. And we'll even usually answer, even if it's late, because one of us, is not sleeping because we're
yeah,
insomniac. So,
I feel that.
yeah. And then, we have our website, getheartcharged.org. And you can always, our emails are on there. You can always reach out via email, because we know not everyone is, on
True.
Instagram. So yeah, we have a TikTok, we have a YouTube, but like, really, like, email us or whatever if you want to chat or talk, or if you know somebody, please give our information to
Yeah,
them. We think we're a pretty good, welcoming community, and we would love to have people there and know that they're not alone on this journey.
yeah,
And we always have, our style is very eclectic, so we hope you'll come and be informed about heart disease. Maybe you'll even laugh, you might cry, based on our content that we
yeah,
share. But we hope that you'll, leave informed and entertained. And we have some exciting, projects coming up, so we hope that you'll
yeah,
just, stay tuned for us. But yeah, we're always doing something, always trying to stay busy, trying to,
yeah,
advocate where we can. Whether that's collaborating with doctors, other patients, other organizations, whatever we can do to spread the awareness.
yeah, definitely. Well, the humor side of it is something I definitely relate to. I think the some of these things that we're all dealing with, you can bring a little bit of lightness. It's not such a bad thing.
I
Yeah,
think it almost like relaxes somebody, invites
like
them in,
therapeutic almost, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
also, like, that's my medicine. I love to laugh, and I think it is the best medicine. So like, for me, it's like, okay, I can cry, but I need to laugh. And like, that's why I
balance it
think me and
out.
my sister make a good team, because like, I'm more like, oh yeah, even though we both have a dark sense of humor, but it's like, oh, how
Yeah.
can I, I'll come in and be like, how can we make that funny, or how can we, add this? But then there is
Mhm.
times where it's like, let's not sugarcoat it. Let's just tell you how it is, or hey,
Right.
today's been really tough. And I think when you show that range, I think
I
people
agree.
trust you more and show like, oh,
Well,
this
that
isn't
range
just a
it's
toxic,
real.
positive. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, this is human life.
I mean,
Right
it's
now I'm
not
laughing.
toxically
Yeah,
negative or positive, right? Like it's always
right.
somewhere in the middle. So that's, I think that's a really good thing to try to, make it authentic and tell, real things and real experiences for sure. But Hannah, I sure appreciate the time, and I'll definitely include all the information for how people can reach out and visit with you, and definitely would like to stay in touch and maybe have another episode or something in the future.
No, oh my, it's been such a delight. No, thank you so much. It's been a true honor. I love what you're doing. So it's a real privilege for me to be a guest on your
Same here.
podcast. So yeah, if you want, if we, I'm always, down to come back. So yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Well, I think us in the disability and chronic illness space kind of need to join hands a little bit more to cross diagnosis and everything. So yeah, I sure appreciate the time, and definitely excited to get your episode out there and share with the community.